We have a lot to cover today. Okay, has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Lynn is supposed to be joining us. Is this? Oh, Sarah.
Lynn is coming in now,
Okay, good. Okay, good morning, Sarah.
and so is Christina.
Here's Lynn. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Lynn.
Hi. Good morning.
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 Okay, and Christina. Good morning, Christina.
Hi, good morning.
Were you okay with the minutes?
Yes, the only amendment I have is to add the word help in where it says Member Herman will edit the outreach deck. I think we were talking about forming a small group, and I think Charity's going to be the main sort of person on that. I had offered to help with any
Okay.
help as part of that group. It's just a small thing.
Offer to help. Offer to help edit. To help edit. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, today we have Lynn Arthur from Southampton. I think we all know who you are, so we don't have to do an introduction. Actually, maybe we do have a couple of, we have the reporter online, and we have a resident who's also listening in. So maybe Lynn, just very quickly say who you are.
Sure. I am a volunteer on the Southampton Town Sustainability Committee, where I'm the energy chair. We have sustainability is pretty broadly defined, but that's the area that I look after. I also started a not-for-profit called Peak Power li.com. You could see on the website some of the projects that I've been involved with at the request of the town, because I have been working for the town of Southampton I think I've had 10 contracts over the last 10 years, pretty much to do energy efficiency and programs, NYSERDA programs, educate the public, you know, and the latest one is this community solar, which we'll talk about. So that's the introduction.
Okay, great. So jump in.
Oh, okay. So Tim asked me to come back, and I'm kind of start from the beginning, because I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I understand that you're actively being or discussing what the experience would be like for you to engage in a community solar project, which I'm really excited that you are looking at that. And if I can share my screen, I have just prepared a couple of charts to guide the discussion. What I thought I'd do is bring you up to date with what's happening in Southampton, and then sort of use that as the springboard. Oh, good. Here we go. Let's see. Share. Cool. So you can see this now?
Yep.
Let me minimize this other thing though, so I can see it. Okay, so community solar, again, basically if there's a large solar array, typically 1 to 5 megawatts, somewhere in the LIPA service area, a developer owns the project, and they then work with whomever owns the parcel of land to decide how that project is to be distributed. But in this illustration, it really, it's pretty simple. The solar array can be anywhere. It can be on a building, it can be on land. There's a tariff and a tariff, by the way, is defined as the terms and conditions associated with a program. So in this case, the tariff is called Community Distributed Generation, CDG, Community Solar. It's actually a statewide program, but each utility has its own rules, and pretty much they're all more or less the same, with some subtle differences. But that solar array is injecting capacity into the grid. And for that, the developer gets paid on a every kilowatt hour that's injected. They get a prearranged amount of money. That amount varies depending upon where the array is located. It's a complicated thing that I will not get into today, but you shouldn't assume that every array is paid exactly the same amount, because it depends on where it is and what the need, is it in a load pocket, those sorts of things. But then the utility, through the grid, those bill credits, so the project generates bill credits, and those bill credits then are distributed to subscribers. So if you're a subscriber to one of these community solar projects, you don't have to install anything on your premise, not on your roof, not in your neighborhood, not even on Shelter Island. You could participate in any program that is available to you, made available to you by a developer anywhere in the LIPA service area. So stated simply, that's what community solar is. Whoops, how do I get to advance this? Oh, there we go. So it turns out that there's all of a sudden a lot of activity. And so why is that? It occurs to me, you might be interested to know, we all know about this thing called the CLCPA, which is what is it? I forgot what it stands for. Climate Leadership Community Protection Act. But anyway, within the CLCPA is legislation that was adopted by New York State. Geez, it's got to be at least six years ago, called the Clean Energy Standard. And those are all the mandates. And I'm sure you've read in the press lately, there's a lot of speculation about how New York is not going to meet its own mandates because the offshore wind, there've been a bunch of issues there. So as a result, there's a lot more pressure for the state to get more renewable energy into our grid through other means. And the obvious thing to do, which is proven, is solar. And that's also part of the reason why there's so much pressure to install a lot of batteries as well, because you need to store that capacity that you're not using when it's actually being generated. So the CLCPA is one of the reasons why community solar is growing. Also, you should know that the Long Island market is very lucrative to developers because it pays a higher rate for every kilowatt hour that's injected. The problem is that there's not a lot of land. Developers owning large tracts of land are going to make more money if they develop housing. So, but notwithstanding, there's a lot of activity. And the other reason is that the cost of electricity is going up. We're in the process. I don't know if this has happened on Shelter Island yet, but LIPA has been rolling out its time of use rates. So for example, I have solar on my roof, so I don't have time of use on my particular property, my personal property. But I've heard of other people who are on time of use rates up island telling me that the cost of electricity, now this is the bundled cost, the total cost divided by the amount of kilowatt hours that they consume each month, between like midnight and 7 a.m. is like in the neighborhood of like 11 cents a kilowatt hour. But between the hours of 3 p.m. and midnight, it's like 40 cents. So, I put in parentheses congestion pricing because everybody knows what's going on in New York City with the tolls. But that's basically what it is. I'm sure you guys are talking about this maybe, in detail at another time. But these are the reasons, from my perspective, why community solar is growing. There's a lot of projects underway. So it's important as you're looking at these things, consider who are the involved parties. Well, the developer is really the king. The developer makes all the decisions regarding, where the array is going to be built. They're going to enter into some sort of a lease agreement with whoever owns the parcel of land. That parcel owner then gets a certain amount of money, per year or per month. And usually those leases have an accelerator in them. I've seen mostly about 2%. They go up 2% per year on a compound, growth rate. The developer leases the land. Then they have an arrangement with LIPA for how much they're getting paid. And then there's a third organization. What I'll do at the end of this chart is I'll pause if somebody wants to ask questions. Then there's a third partner in this project, and that is the customer acquisition partner. Now, the customer acquisition partner is not necessarily in the same company of the developer. This is how the market is developed. There are several customer acquisition partners out there, about a handful that do business on Long Island. Synergy, Good Energy, Jewel, Meadow, to name a few. And what they're responsible for is the enrollment portal. That's the website that when subscribers are solicited to enroll in the project, they go online and put their information in. Typically, it's just their name, phone number, email address, and a copy of page 1 of their bill, because page 1 of the bill has the address and the account numbers on them. And that acquisition partner, then they are responsible for the spreadsheet, which contains all the subscribers, and then they determine what the allocation will be per subscriber. Because the first thing they do when you subscribe is they go to PSEG, and they then have permission to say to PSEG, well, how much capacity, what was the consumption that this particular resident consumed in the last 12 months. And then the acquisition partner, typically either they have staff, sometimes they only do digital marketing. In other words, they don't have any boots on the ground that are doing outreach, public education, answering questions. It's all done digitally. Other local organizers then are their subcontractors to the customer acquisition partner. And by the way, that's what I do. So my company, Peak Power, was the local organizer, which I'm going to show you on the next chart, for the North Sea project. And what I did in particular was all this training, educate the public, work with the town board, put together the marketing materials, get articles in the press, basically communicate to the public what it is and answer their questions and encourage them. It's voluntary. If they want to enroll, that they enroll. Now, the CDG tariff, moving on, it requires, this is really important to understand, the CDG tariff in the LIPA service area requires at least 60% of the bill credits associated with that project must go to residential accounts. And then 40%, that would be the remaining, of the bill credits that are available then can be taken advantage of by a municipality or by commercial accounts. Now, you see how I wrote at least 60? The 60 can go up, but it can't go down. The 40% can go down, but can't go up. So that's just an important distinction to understand. And the last thing I just want to mention is that based on what I see, and so as a local organizer, and I'm really happy about this because this project at North Sea went you might mute your phone, mute your screen if there's a lot of background noise. most of the projects that I'm seeing right now are offering 10% off the annual cost of electricity. And the way that gets that the developer decides based on the economics of the project, how much of the monthly, the amount of money that they get from the utility every month for the capacity they inject in the grid, they take a certain percentage of that and then they redistribute it as bill credits. And that's where the funding for the bill credits come from. So I'm going to pause there and just ask if there are any questions. Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, so, Lynn,
Sure.
two things. One, you said 10% bill credits. That would be the case with your North Sea solar project, which is already closed, as I understand it, North Sea Community Solar.
Actually, thank you, Steve. That's a great question. So North Sea started out at 10%. And you won't read this in the press, but if you were, around at board meetings or you watched, I'm not sharing anything that's not public information, but the array originally was supposed to be 5 megawatts. What you're looking at on the screen right now is there's an aerial shot. The project is complete. It was actually completed at the end of November, and we're just waiting for PSEG to basically turn it on. So the project was originally 5 megawatts, and the developer had already made all the investments, equipment purchased, etc. But because they were not able to put that additional megawatt on land adjacent to this landfill, they had to reduce from 10 to 8%. So our project is actually 8% and not 10%, but it was intended to be 10. So does that answer your question, Steve?
Yeah, but basically what we would want to shoot for would be 10%.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Okay. And
in
my
fact-
other question, therefore, my other question is, does the community solar array, the actual hardware system, can that only be at one physical location? Or can a developer use more than one location in the same project?
Well, here's my understanding. That's a great question for a developer, but let me tell you what I know. The gating factor is the hookup with the grid. So under the tariff, a system is limited to 5 megawatts. But if rule of thumb is 1 megawatt requires about 4 to 5 acres of land if it's a ground mount. So let's say you've got 50 acres, which means you could fit 2 5-megawatt systems. Or you could put it, you'd think, well, gee, why wouldn't I just put 1 10-megawatt system? Well, the CDG tariff doesn't support that. So you have to actually have 2 connections to the grid, and they have to be 2 separate projects, but they can be co-located on the same parcel. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you can have co-location of more than one,
Yes.
but it basically has to go through the same meter. Is that it, or the same connection to the grid?
No, it cannot. I mean, again, you know what? That's a technical question I would rather not answer.
Okay.
I don't believe
Okay.
I believe the connections have to be separate, but it's got something to do with the technology, perhaps. I don't know. But good question. I'm sorry I couldn't answer. I will ask the developer that I'm currently talking to and see what their response is, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, because if you can aggregate the systems, you can easily get up to 5 megawatts.
Oh, wait a minute. You're asking different question here. So you're saying you have multiple arrays that are co-located that could be attached at the same location in order to get to 5 megawatts.
Yes,
Well, look at the image on the screen.
yeah,
Okay, here's the landfill. I mean, it looks like there are two separate arrays, no?
yeah. Well,
But
what
that's-
if, what if
that's
one
one-
array were a mile away, though?
N- I don't, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. Let's have that conversation. I'll get you on the phone with the developer. It's easy.
Okay, okay.
can-
It's not urgent, but,
Sure.
you know, trying to get our hands around the parameters here of the
Mhm.
program.
Well, in this case today, what I'm talking about, I'm not thinking about an array being built on Shelter Island, which I think is where you're going. I'm thinking about arrays that are somewhere else, Comac, Brookhaven, somewhere else.
Right,
All right, so here's in a nutshell, this is the project in Southampton. It's a little over 4 megawatts. It's on a capped landfill. There's the picture. It was available to be operational in November, but there's some issues with the PSEG and they're working through it, and it's got to do with the Verizon, I think, or something like that. But anyway, the system, I've been told, could be operational in the next 2 weeks, but it also could be maybe a month from now. I think they're waiting for a piece of equipment to arrive and then be installed and configured. So once that system is operational, then the bill credits within 1 to 2 months of operation, day one, will begin to flow. In our case, the bill credits are valued, as I said before, at 8% of the annual cost of electricity. And it'll be for 20 years. So if you just do the simple math, if your bill is $100 a month, 8% is $8, 8 times 12 is 96. So it's like getting 1 month free of electricity, not quite, for 20 years. And in our case, 40% is going to go to the town of Southampton. And the other 60% has been allocated to approximately 550 Southampton residential accounts. And this project was filled, again, this is another tidbit that's useful. This project was filled in less than 2 months. And I had this created. This is every blue dot that you see are where the subscribers are. So we really made an effort to focus on disadvantaged communities. This over here, this particular thing, you can't see it, but there are 70, that's a mobile home park that has 370 units, and I think 70, somewhere around 70, 80 or 90 people actually signed up from that one location. But we had pretty good distribution across the entire town. Okay, so I think this is my last, this is the last chart. So again, to summarize, you guys could have a developer, there are developers that have projects that are either under contract or are close to being completed. And they are seeking subscribers. So you could have your own project. You could brand it however you want. It could be called Shelter Island Community Solar. I'd like to think that the municipality would be open to the idea of partnering. It will not cost anything for the town. The solar array will be somewhere in the LIPA service area. Remember that 60-40 we talked about a little extensively? Well, the 40% is more likely to go to the entity that owns that land. So this is not always true, but I would expect that, chances are that the credits from the project, the commercial credits could not be taken advantage by the town. However, if the town has many buildings, and if those buildings have residential meters, then they could participate in the 60%. The 60% has to go to residential meters. And again, rule of thumb, you don't know until you are approached by a developer how much distribution that they have. So one of the first questions you want to ask is, how big is the array? And do you have multiple arrays? Is it one array? You have multiple projects? Because you have around, I think, what is it, 4,000 year-round residents, 3,000, somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yes.
So a 1 megawatt project is only going to be able to support about 150 subscribers. Southampton has 60,000 households. And that project was filled with 550. And that's why we actually filled the project in 6 weeks, because we did a really good job of outreach. We were way ahead. They turned on the enrollment in August, but we had been at this for a year, just communicating. So as soon as the spigot got turned on, the project got filled up. But again, there's no reason why you should just have one project. You could have multiple ones. You could have, and there's nothing stopping any developer from soliciting customers from Shelter Island or Southampton or Southold or anywhere, because technically LIPA will accept any resident in the LIPA service area. And the rest of this is really, the key thing to think about is how you want to market it. You want to partner with whoever the customer acquisition partner is. And customize and focus. Southampton Town Board wanted low income to be prioritized, and we did that. We did that by heavily doing many presentations in the places where we could communicate with low income households, churches, senior centers, community organizations, and things like that. And the town board loves this because basically it's they're doing valuable work here. They're helping green the grid, and at the same time they're making a discount available to households on Shelter Island or Southampton in our case for energy on their electric bill. So that's all I had. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I had 2 questions. One, Lynn, about the landfill. Was there a membrane that you had to deal with, or was that not, for instance, yeah, go ahead.
That's a great question. I participated because I'm on the sustainability committee when the RFP was written. One of the in the decision-making rubric, as they called it, they were looking for a developer who had previously built on a landfill, and that's who they chose. Because of course you can't pierce the membrane. That's something, you want to work with a developer who really, has experience with that. In our system, it's a ground mount system that is ballasted. I've got some pictures I could pull up, but basically it's a lot of cement up there, weighing it down, because it is on the highest point, I think, on the South Fork, the top of that hill.
So there was a membrane there, and
Oh, yeah.
okay, good to know.
It's capped, it's 20 years. It was capped 20 years ago.
Okay.
And then the other thing you want to be careful of too is when you have a membrane, because I had pushed for, what do they call it? Pollinator pathways. There's this pollinator pathway being supported by, I think it's the couple of community organizations, like from west to east, all the way to East Hampton. And it's a really good thing to do. But when you have a capped landfill, you got to be really careful what you're planting, if you're planting. You're probably better off having goats or sheep or some animals grazing to keep the grass down versus planting. Got to be careful there.
And the other question was, did PSE&G have to do any upgrades to accommodate the array?
In every case, the answer is going to be yes. But that's at the cost of the developer.
Right.
And there's something called a Caesar study that gets done, that is ordered as soon as the project is, I guess, at the very beginning, when the developer undertakes the effort to go do all the permitting. Once I guess they get to a point where they know it's definitely going to happen, then they invest money in the Caesar study, because once they spend that money to do that study, they can't get it back, and it costs them quite a bit of money, I understand. Not quite 100,000, but up there. And that will determine the output of that study is what upgrades are required to the grid to accommodate the project.
Do you know offhand how much the upgrades cost for your project by any chance?
Yeah, but it's not that. Yeah, that is, again, the developer eats that cost. It's
Right.
it's baked into the project economics.
Yeah,
I could find out though. I'll ask.
I'm just curious.
Well, also understand that in our case, the substation is very close, and the 60-volt line, I think, runs right down Major's Path, which is right at the street, on the street where the project is connecting to the grid.
Right.
So I don't believe that the cost was excessive.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, is that it, Tim? Because I have.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we look at the Southampton North Sea project as an example, it sounds like while the residential participants could have been eligible up to 10% bill credits, that it actually worked out to 8% because of the limitations of the actual physical plant. Okay, but if we were starting from scratch here, if Shelter Island were starting from scratch, identifying locations, working with a developer, that our residential participants could be seeing a 10% reduction in their bills for the next 20 years. Is that basically it?
It depends on the economics of the project. The developer is going
course.
to, yeah, the developer is going to tell you that. I mean, if you put a project on a place where they have to, run lines to make connection into the grid, and it's quite a distance, that's going to be very expensive. So you might not get 10%. You might get less than that.
As is the case with North Sea.
Well, in North Sea's case, it was different. It wasn't the connection to the grid.
Yeah, it was
It was
smaller,
the
right?
size of the project. The size of the went from 5 megawatts to 4 megawatts. I mean, that's what, 25% of the project we lost. So that's why it went down to 8. And oh, by the way, there are going to be more projects that are going to come to Southampton. They're being offered now. And we might get, like the villages, we have, 6 incorporated villages in the town of Southampton? Because they're talking, a couple of them are talking to me about what we're talking about today. They'd like to have access and have their own program. So and here's, there's a good one. Here's how that works. So let's say you signed up for 8%, and starting in May, you start to get your bill credits. But let's say in December, some other project comes along and it's offering 10%. And you say, oh, more money. I'm going to sign up for that one. Well, you're only allowed to have one project. You can't have multiple. So I'm not sure how this is going to work because, again, this is brand new for PSEG. But the 8% project could lose subscribers because they're now saying, I want to quit that project and sign up for the 10%.
And this is a bill that I have to pay.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, I do. And it's related to what Lynn was just talking about. So Lynn, thanks very much. That was actually one of my questions. What are the conditions under which people sign up? Do they sign up for a certain period of time? Or do you know what the contract says about that?
Uh,
Sit,
You,
sit.
oh, that.
Nelson?
Okay, so to answer your question, when you sign up, you are signing up for the duration. As long as the project is active and you don't move,
Stay.
meaning your account stays open with PSEG, you're in. Or you can leave the project at any time. There's no,
So that's the
penalty.
question. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no penalty for leaving.
No
Oh
penalty.
dear.
but people who, yeah, it's completely voluntary. There's no cost to you to get into it, and there's no cost to leave it. But I think your account probably has to be in good standing. So if you are, terminated for whatever, for, I don't know, lack of payment, or somebody moves and they turn the account off, the subscription doesn't stay with the house, it stays with that account number. And then the other thing to understand is you can only get one benefit at a time. So if you have solar on your roof, like I know Steve has solar panels, he's exempt. He can't participate in a community solar project. You can only also be subscribed to one project at a time.
Great. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Anybody else have questions? Anybody in the audience have questions?
Cool. So, as I said before, I'm currently being solicited to assist a number of projects that are at various stages. If you are interested in pursuing this, I would be more than happy to put you in touch with one or more of them. Other villages, other towns like Riverhead, East Hampton are interested and actively, Riverhead has actually got a project that they're building on their own parcel. But the villages in Southampton Town are interested in this too. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'll be doing pretty much full time. And I would love to work with you guys. We've been talking about this for 5 years. So we'll see what happens. Don?
Lynn? Yeah, yes, as was mentioned, that was great. Thank you very much. How far away can this installation be? It must be within the same town in New York State. We have an option apparently to join a Brookhaven CDG. Is that possible? What's
Absolutely.
the limitation?
There is no, it only has to, the array has to be sited in the LIPA service area. So that's Eastern Nassau and all of Suffolk County.
Okay,
Yeah, you could absolutely piggyback on another project. And so you could have your own project, you could piggyback on someone else, or you could have both. I mean, if you've got 4,000 residents, these projects cannot support thousands of people. A 5 megawatt project, which is the largest, can't support 1,000 residents. So, it's really how your board wants to, how does the board want to offer it to the residents? Does the board want to be seen as the facilitator? Or do they want to just piggyback on some other project that's already running? But why not do all of it?
Lynn, when, in the case of your project, did you obviously outreached all of your residents. Was the goal to to sort of fill all those slots with your residents first, and then if anything was left over, which in this case there isn't, you would then open it up beyond your residents, or?
No,
No.
we have a waiting list. If you have your own project, as I described, like, for example, if I were to bring one of the developers that I'm talking to you, they would tell you what they have available immediately, you know, or whenever you're ready, you know. So let's say you want to do a project, I don't know, in this before June or in time for summer, because it does take some planning, you know, to get going on this. You have to getting board approval and educating the board and so on and so forth. So they're going to have projects that are going to be varying in size. They might have a 5 megawatt project. They might have a 2 megawatt project. But they'll talk to you, and you could brand it, like I said, Shelter Island Community Solar, no cost to the town. And you would make that exclusive to your residents, because that there's, I mean, a 2 megawatt project only can handle maybe 300 subscribers. A 5 megawatt project is going to handle maybe, I don't know, 600, 700, 800 subscribers. A project, if you're piggybacking on another town's project that's already underway, a good question for you to ask is, well, how many subscribers, what do you got left? How much capacity do you have left? And you take that number and you divide it by the average consumption of a household on Shelter Island, which I would suggest is somewhere, in my case, I took all the subscribers and I averaged their annual consumption divided by the number of subscribers, and it turns out to be 10,000 kilowatt hours, 11,000 kilowatt hours a year, which is pretty standard. I also eliminated I took the top 20% off and the bottom 20% off to come up with that number. But Brookhaven might only have space for another 100 subscribers. So that's why I say, you know, cast a wide net, because as soon as the word gets out, your residents are going to want this program because it's free. It's free money, you know, being applied towards their PSEG bills, which are going up. So it's great that you are ahead of the pack.
Yeah, that was one of my follow-up questions. One is that this 8% commission, okay, that each of the participants would be earning for 20 years. You had mentioned, you know, rates are going up over the next 20 years as well. The 8% remains the same,
Yes.
but the value of that 8% is going to be increasing over the
Yes.
next 20 years, perhaps substantially. Okay,
Yes.
so I wanted to make that clear. I want to be clear on that. The value to the participants could be going up substantially. The other question I had is, it sounds like that you would be offering a turnkey program to Shelter Island. Basically, you could handle the relationship with the developer and also the promotion and the promotion materials to the folks on the island, and also, you know, keep track of participation. So it's basically a turnkey program you're offering us as well. So it's free to the participants and essentially free to the town.
Yes, but let me just make a little refinement. I'm not offering it. I'm a subcontractor to a developer who would be offering it.
Of course.
It's not me. You know, I'm not the
Well,
tail wagging the dog.
But we would be dealing with you. We would be dealing with you. And you have
Well,
the
yes.
relationship to the developer.
I would bring the developer. You would work, you know, talk to the developer. It would basically be now that I think about it, it would be a no fee agreement. So no fee agreements under municipal law do not have to go to bid. There's no RFP needed because there's no money changing hands. You're basically agreeing to a marketing program. So the marketing program would be, you know, the town, or maybe the town would, you know, get the committee involved, I would hope. And the town would say, okay, here's your liaison, you know, this is the person we'd like you to review all your marketing materials, what's your marketing plan? And we would collaborate, you know, which community groups, when do you want to do meetings? What events we'll table at? We'll do some advertising, we'll talk to the press, we'll put up banners, you know, we'll figure out signage, if any, you know, we'll do a website. And I would be your, you know, once it gets to that point, you know, if in fact you end up collaborating with a developer that I'm, you know, a subcontractor with, then it would be me that you would be interacting with for that, you know, for the boots on the ground details. But the developer would enter into the no charge agreement with the town, you know, to brand it.
Sure, that's the details, right?
Because
Sarah has her hand up too. Is that her?
Sarah?
Hi,
Sarah, did
Lynn.
you-
I just wanted to say that I'll be contacting you offline as I work this year to figure out if Sylvester Manor can host a significant 0.5 or 1 megawatt array for
cool.
community solar project.
By the way, hopefully you're aware that there's a new, well, relatively new, hopefully not been stopped, Department of Energy grant for agricultural, 50% off solar. It's the best deal ever, and it's never going to get better than that.
We'll talk. I mean, we were on the brink of applying for an OSED, Office of Clean Energy Development, rural co-production grant, but we weren't able to get that together this year. And the expectation is that OSED we're going to wait. If the program's offered again next year, we may be able to go for it.
Okay. Yeah.
But the Office of Clean Energy Development may not exist. So it was.
Well, the developer I'm working with is really large. They do projects all over New York State, and they work with not-for-profits.
Yeah,
They-
I look forward to talking more with you. We definitely have some interesting things to pursue for
Excellent.
Sylvester
Cool.
Manor as a site that could be distributing that 60% to the community.
Yeah, I would just encourage you guys to do all of it because there's not enough, you know, to focus on just one is great. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you have resources to handle, but you know, because of the price of electricity going up with this time of use rates and people freaking out a bit, these bill credits are going to make, you know, board members famous. People are going to be very grateful. And they're not going to be enough to go around. So, you know.
Now's the time to move.
Well, at least express interest, you know, take it to the next level, have the meeting with
Right.
see what they have to offer,
Right.
but do all of it. You know, you don't need to pick one, you could pick 3. But see what's available. Cool. Well, anyone else? If not, you know where to reach me. I'm sorry I couldn't get there today.
No. This is perfect. Anybody else have anything before Lynn?
I was just going to say a comment, really, that if it was on the island, then that would also provide some level of redundancy for the island. You know, with all the conversations that have been happening, when you start talking about an array that's off island, God forbid during a storm or something like that, and we get cut off, you know, if it is on the island, then, you know, we can still maintain our own grid essentially and kind of provide some form of power. Not sure you can kind of segregate it at all, but, you know, it becomes a little bit more of a redundancy factor, which is nice.
Well, resilience is what you're on.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
a resiliency benefit.
very
Yeah.
important. Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, this solar array here in North Sea is just 2 miles from my house. We're in a load pocket that is still, because of the growth, the density increasing and all the building that's going on, we still have that summer peak problem where capacity, you know, demand is exceeding supply and it creates problems. So this array is really being turned on in the right spot. And it sounds like obviously you're on an island on top of everything else, so sure, makes sense.
Does this array have any storage as well?
Ours doesn't, but I understand that Riverhead's will. I think the ones, there are several under development in Brookhaven, or at least under contract, and I think they all do. I'm not sure. I know Brookhaven has been very progressive when it comes to battery storage. Not
Before
here.
Lynn goes, did we have any questions for her, maybe Dawn, about geothermal? Lynn has a geothermal system at our house.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Don, we have to save room also for Don wants to show us something, so.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll sign off. Thanks again, and I hope to hear from you guys soon.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Lynn.
much.
Thank you.
Great.
Don, why don't you jump in?
Okay, I'd like to share my screen if I may. And let's see. Share with me. It's here. Oh, come on. Sorry, it's not showing up. I've got to minimize something. Why don't you, well, first, without being able to share the screen, I had it before. I'm not sure what's going on now. Sorry about that.
Does Coco need to give you some kind of sharing
No,
privilege?
it's not, she has already, but
Yeah.
it's just not showing up the screen that I want here. I don't know why. Disappeared. Okay, I think I'm getting there now. I apologize, Tim, I've lost it here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Just not letting me get to it. Technical problem here. Let's try this again. Okay, one more time. I think I've got it now. Okay, good. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Let's see, I guess just a couple of people don't know what REOPT is and what we've been doing with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. But they've been using this tool, which is available online, to analyze various types of energy scenarios. As it says right there, it allows users to evaluate the economic viability of various distributed energy resources for a building, a campus, or a microgrid. So in particular, I've been looking at this for our Shelter Island school. I have some saved scenarios, if you will, saved evaluations, which you could see if I click on it right here. It is showing the saved evaluations for the Shelter Island School, and I have about 5 of them that I've already looked at. A combination of photovoltaic array on the roof, geothermal heat pump, air source heat pump, and various combinations with a battery, without a battery. but just to show you how the tool works, the first one right here at the top is for just the best financial situation for the school using a 173 kilowatt photovoltaic array, and in this case, 107-ton air source heat pump. And you can see that it shows a net present value of over $200,000. We can take a look at the results for this particular scenario right here. Come on. I think my system is bogged down again. It's not showing it. There we go. Okay. So anyway, this goes into considerable detail of the system performance. And here we have a graph showing roughly 1 week of time with the electrical load, the business as usual electrical load, the photovoltaic exporting to the grid, et cetera, the photovoltaic serving the load. Various other analyses, it goes into considerable depths. We can do a results comparison here between business as usual, financial, the best financial advantage, and then the difference. So anyway, the point is, this is a very useful tool. NREL, of course, has been doing much of this for us, but I think we have the capability of doing it for ourselves for various scenarios. So I first, as I said, looked at the school, but we can also look at various other facilities. It's not clear that we can do this for residences, but because of the built-in parameters in this particular model.
Okay, I
But,
think
okay. I'm going to stop my share there. And what I'd like to propose is that we do get together and come up with a set of scenarios that we can use to evaluate for the school, and then at some point talk to the school about these opportunities. Questions?
Any questions, anybody? No, this sounds promising, Don.
Yeah, sorry, I was having trouble getting off mute. I just have a very quick question. Don, do you remember the size of the array that the school can take?
Oh,
At this
well,
point?
I have, yes, Christina, I have the number that was put to us by, oh, you stopped my screen sharing?
I'm sorry.
Can you allow screen sharing again?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Because I know your system comes out at 173 kilowatts, and I was just wondering, I can't remember what they were suggesting.
I use that number based
Oh,
on what
okay.
NREL has told us.
Oh, terrific. All right, excellent. Thank you.
I didn't just make that up. That was the NREL number.
No. I wasn't sure if, well, what the parameters were you put in.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there are alternatives here, various other types of analyses, optimal resilience, etc. You can see the numbers there. They vary considerably. But we can go on and on. It takes a few minutes for each of these analyses to proceed.
Right. Can we mix solar and geothermal and
Yes.
look at a ground source heat pump? Oh, neat.
Right here, I already have.
Ah. Oh, interesting. And that, do you have a payback period of time?
Yes, yes, it is. You can see it's very slow right now. My system is slow in responding. Sorry. It really works a lot better when it's not on Zoom.
Right.
Okay, so anyway, you asked about this, potential life cycle savings, 158,000. And let's see, going down, geothermal heat pump. The load, existing heating system.
I guess the question I have in the back of my mind is the solar array will, maybe you look at that over a lifetime of 20 years, but a geothermal array can last 50. And so I'm wondering, I was sort of wondering why it's less cost effective to go with the geothermal than the solar. And are you looking at the same, like the same 20 years? It might not be, the geothermal might, because of higher upfront costs, may not yield the same benefits, but it's going to last a lot longer than 50 years. And I'm just wondering how
Well,
the tool can manage that.
Yeah, Christine, I believe that you can set the time duration also, the payback period. So, for example, let's just start a new one. I'll show you very quickly. We're basically at time.
Mm.
But okay. Here's starting a new analysis. Okay, it shows the data that's needed. For a single site, you can emphasize cost savings, resilience, or clean energy. You can select the technologies to evaluate. You could see photovoltaic, battery, the grid, air source heat pump, geothermal heat pump, combined heat and power. You enter the site data, the utility rate, which, by the way, if we choose Shelter Island here, I believe that the utility rate will come up automatically. Can you see what it's pulled up for this area? But we have to then, of course, go down to the relevant LIPA rate for either commercial or residential.
Mm-hmm.
So you see all of these. Unfortunately, I think some of these rates are out of date.
Yeah.
Yeah, one or two questions or points. Is there a screen with the upfront cost, the capital costs
Yes, there is.
of
Sure.
these systems? Can we look at that, get a handle on the upfront capital cost?
Sure. Let me go back to my saved results, Steve.
Yeah, also, Christina, just a point here, while the ground loop on a geothermal may last 50 years, the heat pump will likely not last 50 years. It's a compressor-based system,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's going to
correct.
require maintenance and replacement and so forth.
Yeah,
Right.
sure,
But
of
that's
course.
but they last a bit longer than the air source heat pumps. So yeah, no, fair enough.
Okay, so you asked about the upfront cost, Steve?
Yeah,
Well,
Including-
let's see,
including
there are ways of
excavation.
Looking at it.
including
Let's see, right
excavation.
Here is one. Okay, for this particular scenario, which, go to the top here. This is a battery backup with a 173 kilowatt photovoltaic array. Going on down right here.
Yeah, I'm looking at geothermal. That's what I want
He
to
just
see.
wants to
We'd
compare.
have to,
Yeah.
yeah, Steve, we'd have to take another, another meeting to go through those details.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, right here, you could see that you can see the capital costs, technology capital costs after incentives. And I'm sure it's here also. Total utility electric
There's
cost.
total upfront costs before incentives is down below.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
Yeah. So it's a little under 300,000.
Right.
And I guess to compare
And
that
that's
with a
right, that's
geothermal,
exactly.
yeah, to compare it with a geothermal system, we could divide it by the number of years it would last, and then do the same thing with the geothermal system, and then take into account the fact that the heat pump would have to be replaced after maybe 25 years. They do last a bit, they last longer than the air source heat pumps. And then, just compare the two. At least to
Sure.
get a rough estimate. We'd have to talk to developers to get more precise figures, but I think this is really a fabulous tool to help us think through some of the
And by
possibilities.
the way, the documentation on this is quite extensive. You've got 200 pages of documentation that I'm still going through with all of the formulae for the analyses. So
Well,
there's a
thank you.
lot to think about here. But this is for geothermal right now, and results comparison. Okay, total upfront cost, capital cost before incentives.
Mm-hmm. So it's more than twice.
Oh, yeah, well, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And how much that includes for the well digging or for the trenching? I don't know. I'll have to look at it more carefully.
Yeah, so this may not include the excavation.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sure. No, I would imagine it does, but the costs on Shelter Island might be a bit higher than what their cost estimates are for the trenching. I can't imagine they would have a tool that gives you the possible cost for the project without considering the trenching. Because when we talked to NREL, they did talk about that point, that is included in their estimate.
Right. Well, I believe they used a version of this tool. Is it the same? I don't know. At our next meeting, we might want to ask them that.
Yeah.
The next step obviously is to bring in, a contractor and have them look at it.
Right.
Get some real world numbers.
Or several contractors, of course.
Yeah, not mile high numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least we can see if it's realistic or not.
Yeah, for Shelter Island, right.
Sure, sure. But I think it's a very useful tool, and as I said, put a group together, take a look at various scenarios and see what we can come up with. So far, as I said, I've just done the school, but I think we ought to do the recycling center, perhaps some town buildings as well. And well, I guess that's it for now.
It's great. Thank you so much for your work on this, Don. It is a lot of work, and it's much appreciated.
Sure.
Don loves this. Am I right, Don?
I do. It's true. That is fun.
So we're lucky that it's fun for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience, Pam or Julie, have any questions?
Nothing immediate, thank you.
Julie, one thing I just want to say is that we have not been keeping the school, we've not sat down with the school at every step of this process. So we did talk to the school back when we started this program with NREL, but we haven't really sat down with them since. So we are going to do that at some point, but we need to wait for the final report from NREL and other investigations that Don is doing, and then before we actually sit down with the school. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, thank you all for joining. A lot of interesting. Hi, Sarah.
Just
Yeah.
one quick,
Yeah,
um,
go ahead.
one quick old business, just to note that the town did a grant application to DEC to expand the food waste collection program at the recycle center and the school, in partnership with Sylvester Manor as the recipient of the food waste scraps after collection. It'll be a while before a decision on the grant is received, but it was a really nice collaboration with Ken Lewis and Jen Messiano, the grant writer, and Ariel Gardner, our farm manager. So I just want to say that that program keeps growing. And also tomorrow night, Kate Rossi Snook has a Friday night dialogue at the library about expanding oyster shell collection also to the recycle center and the drop-off site at Sylvester Manor, which, you know, is 24/7. So just more and more really cool cycling of nutrients and resources on the island that I wanted
Well,
you guys to
it's-
hear about.
It's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so I was curious as to what our next step might be, or when we're going to discuss next steps for community solar. I think we've been teeing this up now for a while, and, you know, we'd like to maybe at some point brief the board.
I talked to Lynn about that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, and I'll be meeting with Lynn to pursue the, you know, conversations with a developer for a project in an agrivoltaic, the manner. I've scheduled a meeting with her.
Okay.
Could
Absolutely endorse
combined
us.
with the town somehow? Would that, or would those have to be two separate projects?
Wait, say it again, Don?
But could somehow the manor, if you have an array in the manor, and the town be combined? I guess, I don't know.
I think
I think that's,
The question
sorry.
of unconnected, you know, sites that are distant from each other. You know,
That's
we
what
could
they're
certainly
asking about.
see if there's a
Separate
developer.
owners.
yeah, that
Uh,
was Steve's question earlier, and that might pose a
What-
problem.
No, as I said, this is for income, for cost, separate owners. How that would be combined? Would it be just proportional based on the land somehow?
I think
Yeah,
we'd
I-
have to have that discussion with Lynn and maybe,
Developer
our
do two
developer.
different projects.
yeah,
My guess is that they would be two distinct projects, but there's no reason why the island couldn't do two projects.
right,
Yeah,
With the
aggregated.
with the distribution requirements, which she did a great job of clarifying. You know, if the 40% exceeded what Sylvester Manor could use, then there'd be some available to the municipality or other commercial users. But that 60% minimum going to residential, you know, that may be
mhm.
if in order for the town to meet its needs, it may very well need to have its own project on a, you know, different site. But
Right.
Don, I hear you. If there's a developer who's interested in this, we should certainly lay out the potential for them to do more than one concurrent project on the
Right.
island.
Sure.
I'll make
Sure.
sure that
And-
that's
right.
always part of the
Right.
conversation.
And the income from the leasing of the land, is that included in this, or is that separate?
Well, the landowner does get paid for the lease. I'm not sure what you're asking, but
Well, I'm not sure what I'm asking. I'm trying to understand the potential for income to the town or to.
Right.
manor.
It's the leasing, Don.
yeah, a long
It's the leasing, so
lease.
that's-
Long lease of the site. And I think, you know, that becomes, I want to pursue what Lynn said at the end about funding for agrivoltaics projects, because obviously that implies a continued use by the landowner. So I don't know how that works with a developer's lease, but maybe she's talking about a somewhat separate program, but I'll find out. We're gonna meet at the end of next week and, you know, I'll be able to keep you guys posted. I'll keep coming to the monthly meetings. And I'll make sure, you know, that as soon as any developer conversations start, that you guys are looped in on that the town has a chance to, you know, to jump on the same calendar for development. I mean, it sounds logical that the more panels we buy collectively through a single developer, the more cost effective it would be, as well as, you know, the actual implementation costs being more efficient, more cost effective if it all happens at the same schedule. So that would be
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just curious about the fact that they were able to use somebody at their site who was, who dealt with membranes. Because that's, if we could actually get more solar at the recycling center.
Yeah, the ballasted
Well,
system makes,
yeah.
you know,
Some
opens
time
up-
ago, I had a brief conversation with at least one potential developer. And at least for the landfill area, they considered it too small to be of interest to them.
Well, I think it's worth looking at again.
Yeah. It's worth revisiting. Right. Frozen?
It looked like something happened in the room with the electricity, but that can't be since we're still on, so I'm not sure.
Sarah's frozen, the room is frozen.
Can you
Just
hear
and
us?
We can hear you. It looks dark in there.
Yeah, we lost power.
Aha.
Uh-huh.
The generator
Sarah, can
just
you hear
kicked in.
us?
What's that?
Just saying,
Is the island without power right now?
No. We're back on. The backup generator came on for the town hall.
It's sunny outside. We have
Yeah.
no idea why it happened.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, I think I will make a motion
That's-
to
appropriate, good lesson there.
close the meeting before we lose power again.
All right. I'll second that.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank you, everybody.
bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, well.